good. So I figured this is something that I learned while I was in college and undergrad. This is a technique that I learned, and it's called trace monotype drawings. Now, I know there's sticklers out there that say tracing anything, you're not an artist because that's cheating. I don't care what people say about me not being an artist because I trace. So a trace monotype is a print that can only be pulled once. Key word being mono and monotype. It can only be, there's only one of a kind. A trace monotype is made by laying some paper on top of a inked surface, on top of a like plexiglass covered with black ink or whatever color ink, laying the paper on top of that ink and then drawing something off on the back of it and then pulling that paper off and then it revealing that drawing on the front of it. My cat keeps jumping up here. So the supplies you'll need are oil-based ink. I use Speedball. You will also need a roller. You will also need a sheet of plexi or glass, which I can't really, I'm kind of using what I have, and I'm using an old picture frame. I bait it in the back because I don't like it being white. That background behind that is white, and I don't like there being white back there. So you'll need a pen. You'll need a pen or a pencil, any type of sharp object like this. Different things you use, like whether you use a pencil, the tip of a brush, the end of a brush, the hard end, or you use a typical pen, or you use a marker. They're all going to give you different marks when you go and do the trace monotype, so you can experiment with that. I swear to God, this cat don't stop. What else do you need? Oh, you'll need paper. So the type of paper, you want to use printmaking paper, anything that's acid free. But I like to use a much thinner paper. If you use like a gradient paper, a thicker paper, you'll end up with something a little more fuzzy, an image that's more fuzzy. I don't know if y'all can tell. It's a little more fuzzy, not as defined. No matter how hard you press down, you just won't get a solid image. Unlike the thinner paper, where you can get really, really fine lines. You can experiment with different papers as long as they're printmaking paper. I like to find my printmaking paper on Blick, but there's a lot of other resources which I can make a video about, of resources of where to get printmaking stuff or art supplies in general. I just chose Blick because it was the easiest and fastest way I could get it. So, step one is find you an image you want to trace or want to make into a trace monotype. I got like the flowers, which was made into that. Like they're the same image. They came off the same image. Y'all can see. I got images of flowers. This is when I ran out of ink. I got nothing on here. But I got Paris, the Eiffel Tower. We got, when I went to Italy, got some pictures of those, the cathedrals there that we could trace monotype. So yeah. First step is you're going to pick an image, and then you're going to get all your supplies together. So I'm going to get my plexi or my piece of glass to put the ink on. I'm going to grab my ink, my roller, and then I'm going to cut some paper, cut my paper to be the size of my image. Will you freaking stop? I'm going to go ahead and cut it. You always want to be super careful with your paper, because your printmaking paper and your nice quality paper, because it gets dense really quick, easily, and you want to make sure your paper looks nice for when people buy it. You don't want like prints and drawings done on paper that's all bent and cracked and crinkly. We're going to measure and cut this into the size of the paper that I want. Once I figure that out and get that done, I'll be right back with you. So we got our paper ripped down into 8.5 by 11s. That way I can put these prints in some frames maybe and make them look nice. So yeah, we'll get started. Now that we're all set up and ready, we got our paper, we got our ink, we got our rollers and everything ready. We can start with the MONOTYPE. So the first thing we're going to do is open our ink and our spatula thing. Grab a little bit of ink. Now this ink, you want to put gloves on because it can be toxic for you because it's oil-based ink. Also, you don't want to smell it too much, so I got a fan going on in here so that all the fumes get pushed away from me. So whenever you're working with oil-based ink, you want to make sure you're not breathing it in that long or that much. You don't need a lot of ink, this much on my thing. So you're going to set it down on your plexi, either plexiglass or regular glass. So I took the ink, I put it right here. You always want to kind of work your ink before you start to use it. And then when you get ready to put it on your roller, you're going to pick it all up with your spatula and then scrape it across like this. And then you're going to drag it down. Not all of it, but some of it down. You're going to take your roller and you're going to roll it to even out. See how like the strikiness is becoming more solid now? So fast, doing it fast like this picks it up, picks the ink up. Pushing it down and going slow will put the ink down. Make sure that if you listen really closely, you hear the sizzle. You don't want it to sound like paint sizzling, like of a paint can. Let me try to do an example. That means you got too much ink and your texture is going to look horrible. So you don't want it to sound like this. That means your ink's too thick. See how thick that is compared to this sound? And look how thin that ink is. The ink looks really nice on the roller, nice and thin. So once you've built up your ink, you got it nice and textured, you're going to pick some of it up and you're going to roll it onto a new piece of plexi or glass. Sorry guys, I forgot to leave space on my plexi for so once you're going to pick up the ink and then you're going to lay it down. It's a slow process. You're just trying to build ink up one layer at a time until you get a solid black, because you want a nice texture of ink going down onto your piece of paper. So I go vertical and then I'll go horizontal. And then I'll go down. And I'll go the other way, this way, this way. So you're going in kind of a circle. Boom, 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 boom. That way your ink is laying really nice and flat and really pretty. I guess pretty. Where it's laying nice and flat on the glass or the plexi, whatever you're using. It's always hard to tell when you have enough ink or not. You're just going to have to experiment with that. It kind of comes with time of when you know you have enough ink. You can do test. When it comes to monotype drawings, you can do a test print. Now regular monotypes you can't do test prints. But over time you'll get the hang of how much ink is enough ink. We're going to test it out. So to test it out, I got a little strip, some masa paper. We're going to use the rough side, not the smooth side. And we're just going to test it out by putting a piece of it down, taking our pen. I got my pen. So wherever you bear down, see how you want the paper is very lightly touching it. so nothing's on the other side. When I put it down lightly, still nothing will be on the other side, if you can tell. So lightly, wherever you touch, that ink will transfer. So the only place you want ink is where you touch. So I bared down a little bit on the paper right here so you could see. Let's see how it looks. We got Kate, and then you can see where I bared down. You can see where I bared down. In mine, I don't mind the chatter that you can get when you bear down on spots too much. Sometimes if you bear that chatter right around there, even sometimes I'll take my finger, rub down on it so I can have extra chatter, extra texture. When it comes to your ink, when it comes to your the texture of your ink, if you want less chatter, less of this chatter that I just showed you, you can always add, it's carbon something, I forgot what it was. You can add a powder to it that'll stiffen your ink and make it less tacky, so you'll get less chatter. If you want more chatter, more mistakes, more bleeding, like if you want more bleeding like that a little bit, I guess, if you don't want to change the paper, you can add vegetable oil or any type of oil. These monotypes were my favorite thing to do my senior year of college, and I'm still doing them. Still doing them, and I'm still working with plaster, so it's nothing new. So now that we got our square, we can take our nice piece of paper, lightly lay it down onto the spot you just made. I'm just going to take a scrap piece of paper, lay it down over this ink on the left, leaving my block right here. That way I don't mess up the rest of the paper. You're going to lightly let it lay, and then you're going to take the second image, and you're going to take your image you want on the paper. You're going to tape it as well on top of the rest of the other paper. That way it stays in one place and you can check on your progress underneath. So once you got your image down, your paper down, and then your image, and you taped it, you don't want to touch. You do not want to touch any, like, try not to touch the edges. Try not to bear down on the paper with your hand. Like, don't try to put your hand down here on the paper and then press, because wherever you press down with, like if I press down right here with my fist, that fist mark is going to show up on the image. So you want to stay risen, your hand above, keep your hand above the paper, and just whatever mark you want to make only that mark, that bear down. So like, as you see, I did some of it already. Just only bear down with your pen in the places you want the black pen to be in your drawing. You can check your progress as you go. Got a little flower forming. So then if you like what you see, you can keep going. If you don't, stop and try to figure out what's the problem. Is it the ink? Is it your pen? Do you need to add something, take away ink? Like, you just gotta, it's a trial and error. Here are the results of Paris, Eiffel Tower. Flower one. And we have this other flower one I did today. So yeah. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. To clean this stuff up, you gotta scrape it up. We stickler by saving ink. So you take leftover ink, you put it right back in your ink thing. And then you can wipe it down with Dawn soap, or you can use this green spray stuff from the dollar store. Wipe it down with paper towels, throw it all away, and you Gucci. You just made a trace monotype successfully. Maybe. Some of y'all might have failed. I failed.